Good day, everyone. I hope you are all well, staying safe in the middle of this pandemic, and I hope that some of you have gotten your vaccinations. Now, I got my vaccination in the first week of September, my first shot, and I hope to one day live in a world where I don't have to dress up as one of the members of the League of Assassins. That being said, the story I've got for you today is an O. Henry. William Sidney Porter has returned, and the story is called The Last Leaf. Now, this is one of my absolute favorite O. Henrys. I think it is my favorite O. Henry because I find, and this is going to be highly controversial, but I find the gift of the Magi to be extremely overrated. That being said, a lot of my friends were very excited when I decided to announce that I'm going to do The Last Leaf. And so here it is. And since I always get by with a little help from my friends, it's dedicated to all my friends. That being said, enough with the tomfoolery. Let's get down to glass tacks. O. Henry's The Last Leaf. Picture a suburb of the city in which there are these small studio apartments shared by poor artists who want to make it big in the art world. Our story begins in one of these apartments in which there are two characters, Sue and Johnsy. Johnsy is short for Joanna. Joanna's dream is to one day paint the Bay of Naples. And Sue is also a talented artist, but she's not been found yet. So both of them spend their time sketching for magazines for stories that impoverished writers submit to these magazines. And this is how they get by. Uh, because the writer is married to the artist, and the artist must put pictures to what the writer puts on the page. This is very Cohen-esque, if you ask me. If you have read the story, the poem in his Book of Longing, in which he writes, "My page was too white, my ink was too thin. The day wouldn't write what the night penciled in." Somehow, when I was reading this story in preparation to tell it to all of you today, I got reminded of these lines, so I just let it out. That's Leonard Cohen's The Book of Longing. And I'm sure that Leonard Cohen needs no introduction. But I digress. Back to O. Henry. So this studio apartment has two floors. On the bottom floor is the apartment of one Mr. Behrman. And I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So if you could kindly let me know in the comments, I would be very grateful. Now, Behrman has been around for almost 60 years, and Behrman has a dream of painting a masterpiece, as does every artist. And to that end, Behrman has got a easel set up which has been waiting for. I'm sorry, there was something in my throat. So, Behrman has got an easel set up which has been waiting for the past 25 years for a brush stroke, which will be the beginning of the masterpiece. And now that we know our protagonists, let's focus on the antagonist of the story, pneumonia, or as pneumonia is known in the story, Master Pneumonia. Master Pneumonia wages war on these studio apartments, infecting by the multiple. And one of the people to fall prey to Master Pneumonia is, of course, Johnsy. And the doctor that is summoned to treat Johnsy tells Sue very point blank that the entire world of pharmacopoeia cannot do anything if Johnsy herself does not make a conscious effort to want to live. And so, in a not so fair Verona, we lay our tale, where Sue assumes the role of the nursemaid and sits in Johnsy's room sketching, while Johnsy is lying on the bed and looking out the window and murmuring something, not able to understand whether this is feverish delirium or whether there is something important that she's trying to say. Sue abandons her sketching and walks up to the bed and asks, "What is it?" And John C. says, "Seven, then six, then five and four almost together." And it comes about that there is a vine outside the window, and this vine contains leaves that are slowly falling in the wind. And John C. declares that when the last leaf will fall, I will die. And Sue is very distressed. She pulls down the shade of the window and she says, "This is stuff and nonsense. I will not have you believing in these things. And you must sleep now. You must rest. I have given you your medicine. You have had your dinner. You need to rest. I need to call down on Mr. Behrman to be my model for this minor I'm sketching. So after you have gone to sleep, I will do that." And Johnsy very reluctantly turns in her bed and goes off to sleep. At which point, Sue goes downstairs and tells Mr. Behrman what has gotten into Johnsy. Tells him in detail that she is sick with pneumonia. Tells him that this is the situation upstairs. And Mr. Behrman is enraged. Mr. Behrman is like, "What nonsense is this? You ask me to come and boss. Watch my little Johnsy thinking like this, that leaves control her future. This is all ridiculous." And Sue, almost on the verge of tears, says, "If you are not going to pose, I think you're a horrid old man for mocking Johnsy like this. If you're not going to pose, you're not going to pose. That's it." And Behrman replies, "Who said I will not pose? Ach, I'm coming. Just you lead the way." And so they go upstairs to the upper studio apartment, which is shared by Sue and Johnsy, and they find that Johnsy is asleep. So putting a finger to her lips, they go into the other room and they both look at each other once. They're standing like this and they're both looking into each other's eyes. And it is as if an unspoken message has been exchanged between Johnsy and Behrman and Sue, that the triangle is complete. For they all must realize what they have to do. And that night, there is a furious storm, gusts of wind, lashes of rain. And the next morning, when Johnsy wakes up, she orders that the blind be pulled open. And so Sue opens the blind. And there on the vine, what should it be but one leaf with a serrated edge, a little bit of green at the bottom, and yellowing colors beautifully spread all over to its tip. And now there is a smile on Johnsy's face, and she allows Sue to feed her a little chicken broth and a little bit of wine, and she goes back to sleep. And again in the evening, there is a furious storm, perhaps worse than the one from before. And again the next morning, the blind is drawn up by the heartless Johnsy. And again there is that leaf, it has not fallen. And again Johnsy smiles. And that afternoon she says, Sue, I've been horrid for wanting to die. Someday I want to paint the Bay of Naples. Now this was The thing that was Johnson's dream, that one day she would go to Naples and paint the bay. Whenever she wanted to cheer up, she would tell herself that one day she was going to paint the Bay of Naples. And therefore, we are now very close to the conclusion of the story. Therefore, the doctor is called, and the doctor takes a look at her and says, "Yes, the chances are now better. She will pull through under your nursing and my medicine. You have succeeded in making her wanting to live. And now I must go downstairs for Mr. Behrman. He has been smoked by pneumonia, and it is a terrible case. There is no hope for him. The janitor found him, doubled up in pain, soaked to the skin, but there was a palette in the studio with orange and green mixed in it. That is when Sue realizes what has happened, and she goes upstairs and nurses Chauncey. And one day, when Chauncey is all better, Sue opens the blind, points to the leaf, and says, "Didn't you ever wonder why that leaf never fluttered in the wind, never showed any signs of swaying with the branch? Don't you understand, Chauncey? That is Behrman's masterpiece. He painted it that night, and Behrman has just passed away from pneumonia." And that was the last leaf, by O. Henry, or as some of you may know him, William Sidney Porter. And this is dedicated to all those people who have been super pumped ever since I announced it. And I apologize that it's a week late. I was very sick last week. Post my vaccination, I had fever and was in no mood whatsoever to narrate properly. I knew I would botch it, and the only thing that prevented me from doing it was the fact that I did not want to botch an O. Henry. I bloody idolize O. Henry. I'll see you again next week. We will beat this pandemic. Have a little faith. Stay safe. Stay vigilant. Mask up. This is the Bilge Master signing off.